Hello, welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I am your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and I am going to talk today with our guests about finding hope in the face of grief. And how do we do that? I know when Scott died and my dad died, I didn't know how to find hope in the face of grief, and I didn't even know if it was possible. In fact, when people told me to have hope, it would actually annoy me because I thought they were minimizing my loss. So we're going to talk today with three guests who have walked this walk and talked this talk, and they've been through very significant losses in their lives. And our guests today are Tysha Scott, who's right here. In the middle is Ann Smith, and at the end is Kelly Cervantes. And we are going to close the show with a moving song by Ann, who lost her sister Cathy to anorexia. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to have all of you here today. And before we start, I think I'm going to introduce you and tell everybody who you are. Tysha, we'll start with you since you're closest to me. Tysha Scott is the owner and management consultant of TS Management Consulting. And she is the executive board member of Classic Stage Company. Her heartfelt passion is theater. She was a child performer and attended the famous Fame High School of Performing Arts in New York City. Anyone who doesn't know about this, Google it, because there's a lot of famous people who have gone to Fame. It's an amazing school. For 15 years, Tysha's been a theater teacher and theater teaching artist for middle school, high school, and college. She was married to the love of her life, Phillip Randall Scott, a successful attorney for 30 years until his untimely death. Together, they had two beautiful children, a son and a daughter. Welcome, Tysha.
Thank you.
Next to Tysha is Ann Smith, who, as I said, is singing our song at the end of this show. Ann is one of 9 children, and her sister Cathy died from complications due to anorexia when she was 36 years old. Ann is a singer, songwriter, musician, and artist. She has written the book, The Dancing Tree's Secret, as a way to explain to young children that dying and loss are like dancers who are changing their form. Ann wrote this book for her 2 young nieces after their mother, who was Ann's sister, died. Welcome to our show, Ann.
Thank you.
And next to Ann, last but not least, is Kelly Cervantes. Kelly lost her daughter just before her 4th birthday of epilepsy. She wrote the USA Today best-selling book, Normal Broken, the grief companion for when it's time to heal, but you're not sure you want to. Kelly has been published in the Chicago Tribune, Cosmopolitan, and Fortune. She has been featured on MSNBC, the New York Times, and CNN. Her husband, Miguel, starred in the play Hamilton on Broadway for many years, right?
4 years in Chicago and 4 years on Broadway.
Wow. And your daughter's name is Adelaide.
That's correct.
Okay, I want to make sure I get that in also. So welcome to our show. Okay, so I guess my first question is, how do we even find hope after these losses? You've all lost such important people in your family. How do we find hope, Tysha? How do you even start?
By doing that millions of times in a day, the deep breaths that take you to a place where there are times you can't breathe, and recognizing that you are no good to your children who are you leaving behind. You have a legacy of family that love you, friends, and that you matter and that you're important. That Phillip, your daughter, your sister, in my case, my husband, would want us, what would they want for us? To not just survive, but thrive in this new life. So I had to start by saying, no one is coming to save me. And that might feel and sound mean or sound, ooh, that's harsh. No one's coming to save me. I had to save myself. We had to figure out this, what's the purpose of this pain, right? It's not going to bring Phil back if I don't get out of bed by staying in bed for a month and losing 20 pounds and not being able to function. That's not bringing him back, but that's also putting me in danger of my health.
Well,
right?
and the interesting part,
and the mental piece.
When you say no one's coming to save me, initially there are people surrounding
all
us.
around you.
And then all of a sudden you look around and everybody's gone.
No one's there.
And that's often when you need them the most.
And that's where the anxiety sets in, the anger, it's my fault. Why didn't I see this? That's when all that creeps in, because it's human nature. I might have done that. I look back and say, did I not check on a friend or relative after 6 months after the funeral? Did I do this? Did I not look into how people were doing? And I had to settle with, and it was a pandemic. So when I lost Phil, it was knee deep in a pandemic. So no one was going anywhere. We couldn't go to each other's houses. We couldn't support each other. And then I read in a book that said, no one is coming to save you. You save yourself. How? How do you show up for yourself in your life, right? And then I began to read blogs, find a support group. I got a grief coach. I got a grief counselor. But I had to make the decision to do that. No one was coming. You can lead a horse to the well, and we know the rest of that anecdote, right? You can lead a horse to the well, but you cannot, no one was going to make me drink that water. I had to figure it out. And finding the strength doesn't happen overnight. We know that statement. You're so strong. You can do this. And some of that might be they don't know what to say, your friends, your family. And they don't, and it might be letting some of them off the hook as well. But it's, you never know how strong is until strong is all you got. That's what I had. Right? The mortgage wasn't going to pay itself. Don't lose the house or get evicted because you can't get out of bed. And I recognize that. I don't want to lose the house. Tuition has to be paid. So at some point, I had to figure out how to save myself. Where do we begin? I started reading grief. I started reading about what other women and men were going through. I found Widowed Not Alone. I found Soaring Spirits International, where we met.
Yeah. I like this, Tysha. So, Anne, what are your thoughts about this? How did you find hope?
I heard your question in a slightly different
Okay.
way, because I think grief kind of overtakes you in such a way that you kind of like a gray flatline feeling. And I went within. I just found myself not wanting to talk to anybody. I come from a big family, which I think I remarked earlier, that you think it would be so much easier when you're from a big family, but it was very hard. We all, to see each other, we're very close. We're a very big, close, loving family. And you feel for my brother grieving my sister, my parents grieving my sister, my youngest sister grieving her sister. So there's almost like a exponential experience of the grief. I think I wanted to shift the grief, and I found myself craving beauty, to just be outside and just consciously being aware what is beautiful, and just letting it, let the light find me. That's one of my Instagram posts. I post regularly inspiring photographs with that little tagline, let the light find you. It will find you. You have to be open to that. So I found myself creating a shift emotionally just by consciously deciding to seek beauty and notice beauty in nature and things like this. And once I felt the grief start shifting, then I was able to reach out to organizations or find literature. But in those initial stages, I just was not in that place mentally to.
So you almost looked at things and said, what can I still be grateful for?
Yes.
Gratitude journal.
And you know the saying, what we focus on grows. And you certainly are saying, okay, it started to grow. I focused on these things. I made a conscious effort, and the light started to get bigger.
Right. And
but
I'm a
it's
teacher.
making that conscious effort first.
My career has been teaching very young children, and so they play a big role in my own healing, being surrounded by very young children and that innocence and questioning and all of that. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because the reason we called this organization Open to Hope was because we wanted people to be open to the idea that someday they might have hope again. And just a little tiny, just be open that it might be small at first, and then, like you said, it could grow over time. We didn't want to tell people to be hopeful because that's really annoying.
The first time I remember you want to shift. You want to shift. You feel yourself smiling at something that's so beautiful, and then you become aware, like, I just smiled.
I remember the first time I laughed.
2
weeks, a week after Phil passed, my niece and my nephew and my son, they made this incredible joke, and I just sat there and she said, Tysha, don't you want to give me a little smile? I said, I will never laugh again. She said, do you actually think Uncle Phil would not want you to laugh? But she said, do you actually think he would want you never to laugh again? And at that moment, I said, I'm not, the grief was so overwhelming. A year and 2 months later, you get tired of living in that space.
Right.
Your body gets exhausted from, you're just like, I'm not sure how do I laugh again? A year later, something, I don't even know, I couldn't even tell you what it was. I just gut wrenched, I just laughed so hard, my stomach hurt.
And that's pent up stress and holding
Yeah,
that
totally.
as well.
Yes, and I
So
called my
you
niece
don't
and I told her I
realize how much you
laughed.
need it.
Yes,
Right,
absolutely.
right. But you do have to find like I said, the butterflies. All of a sudden, it starts to come to you once you open to hope.
Yes, I
Once
like
you
this.
open to hope, to say, I've made a decision that I'm going to open to hope.
Right.
Then the butterflies start coming, and then the walk, and then the statements, and there's something funny that a young student says to you in the elementary school class that you can smile about. Your son can smile, and things just come to you but you have to make that choice when you're ready to just say, I'm ready to help. I'm ready to regain that confidence
So,
and regain
Kelly,
the hope.
I'm wondering, as you're hearing Tysha and Ann speak, what comes up for you about this?
There's been so many moments where I've been like, yes, yes, yes. But sort of to what Tysha was saying, there is a selfishness to grief. And that can sound harsh. I wrote a book about grief, right? Like, I fully believe that we need to feel all of our emotions and that we should be talking more about grief and that we need to be more open to all of these feelings. However, when grief is overpowering our daily lives, when it is impacting every decision that we make, it becomes this selfish experience that is necessary for a time, but as Tysha said, it's not going to bring my daughter back. Staying in bed, how much I'm crying, trying not to laugh, none of that brings my daughter back. It certainly doesn't strengthen my marriage. It doesn't help my son who's still alive. I think that we come to a breaking point where we have to make a choice. It's not so obvious as a line in the sand, but I do believe that we come up to a place, and for me it was around a year after her death, where I didn't want to be remembered as the mother who was grieving her daughter immensely for the rest of her life and was unable to thrive and succeed with the rest of her life. Just as I don't want my daughter to be remembered as this child who was sick and then died young. I want her to be remembered as this vibrant girl who was, she may have been non-mobile and non-verbal, but she could tell you what she wanted. She could tell you when she didn't want you squeezing her anymore. She had no issue telling us how much she hated Baby Shark and loved Frank Sinatra. Yeah, girl! So these are the things that I want people to remember, but in order for her to remember, in order for people to remember her that way, I have to be open to sharing that. I have to create her legacy. So it is not, the turning point for me was when I came to this realization that not everything happens for a reason. And because there's no reason that you can give me that would justify my daughter suffering for her life and then dying so early. There's no reason that can justify that. However, I can make reason out of this thing that happened. I can use my life and my voice and my energy to create something out of this, that comes out of this, something good to come out of this horrible experience. And it will never be enough. Nothing that I do is ever going to justify the loss of her life, but it helps make me feel better. It gives me the hope and the encouragement to keep moving forward, to put one step in front of another, because I'm still living for her in a different way. I'm not caring for her day to day like I once was, but I am living to honor her memory so that she is not forgotten. And that is one of the most beautiful, meaningful, and fulfilling missions that I can have in this life. And the beautiful piece of this is that when you live with your lost loved one in your life, when you live a life to remember them, to honor them, the hope that that gives you, it radiates off of you, and it empowers the people around you. It gives them hope. It gives them the motivation that they need to put one foot in front of the other for whatever trial they are enduring. That energy is, it passes on, it passes through. It's addictive in a way, and that I think,
magnetic.
yes, thank
Right.
you. I've been searching for the
So
right word.
magnetic.
Thank you.
Right? The purpose in that
yes.
pain that you found. It's finding the purpose and saying, where do I allow Phil's memory? I want to continue to be the woman he fell in love with too.
Yes.
And who did he fall in love with? Someone who he said was beautiful, intelligent, could make lemon out of lemonade, what he used to say. But also someone who we was mesmerized. I was the talking creative one and he was sort of the quiet, reserved one. But he says, you always know how to find a solution to problems that are very difficult and detrimental. And those words ring with me today, right? Your daughter knew who she was, whether she was verbal or not, right? Her light shines now. Emotional, just hearing that there's we found purpose in this pain. The students you're singing, my teaching, being able to stand in front of students to have them propel themselves to the next creative level. When they get emotional, and I'm like, it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. Rome wasn't built in a day, so now let's make some steps to Rome, and that's also how we're reestablishing our lives. Rome was not built in a day.
No.
So you look at this tall staircase and you say, I'm going to get there, but the steps are challenges in my life. The steps are the purpose in my pain.
So
And there is no end
No.
to the stairs.
Yeah.
I
No.
think that that's the
No.
important thing. It's not like
No.
you get to like the top
This
of the
doesn't go
ladder
away.
and someone
Right.
like shoots a confetti cannon and says, "Yay, you won grief. Now you're in hope and
Yes.
your life is going to be better." Like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist.
It's
It
like
is
you
a
said, your
continual
family,
process.
right? You were saying your family, everyone's grieving. I had to recognize my children are grieving. They're still, grief doesn't end.
Right.
It just gets better.
So I'm just wondering, Anne, what is coming up for you as we're talking? The thing about you, Anne, is one of the ways that you express yourself so amazingly is through your music.
Thank you.
Like you say so much, and there's so much that you've said that we're talking about today through the songs that you've been writing and performing
Yes.
on Open to Hope.
There's a song I did for one of the segments called Still Dangerous. And it's a point of vulnerability where it's too dangerous to even speak the name of the loved one that you've lost. And it says, life keeps moving on, I get pulled along, and there are some good days. And if I can't eat or sleep, I make up for it in other ways. The house has been emptied, everything's sold, but memories remain. And the memories ache for the one that's missing like a phantom pain. And I think that when I'm able to write that through my music, something clicks with people that hear that their memories are a phantom pain for the physical absence of that person that they love. And it's a healing process for me. I wrote a song that is also you're playing Until Next Time, and I think that's very affirming, as if the person you've lost could speak to you. They would say, I'm here, I'm with you always, memories outshine the darkest days. Being able to write music and share it with other people is a very profound and healing experience for me.
I love this. I always say that my brother is my guiding light, and I have made my mess my mission. And, I think one of the reasons we are all here, which is what all of you have said, is to keep their memories alive. Like, my kids know my brother, and they've never met him. They know their Uncle Scott because I have kept all those memories and all those stories alive for them.
We adopted after Adelaide passed away, and we have photos of Adelaide all over our house. And so our youngest daughter never met her big sister Adelaide, but you would never know that. The way that she talks about her and how she misses her and how cute she was and all, like it.
I didn't know this about you. We have something in common.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I adopted also.
Oh,
wonderful, Heidi.
After my brother died, I mean, when I had my son, I couldn't have other children and wanted him to have a sibling.
Okay.
So my sister and I flew to China in 2006 and adopted girls together.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that
is beautiful.
their,
That is
you know,
beautiful.
our sons could have sisters.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how kids, you know, people come into our lives in many ways. They leave our lives and then new people come into our lives.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And how old is your daughter now?
Now she's 5 years old.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we've she's been with us for almost 3 years now, and we have a wind chime that I hung with Anessa on our back porch. Someone had given it to us not long after Adelaide had passed away. We were living in Chicago at the time. We didn't really have any sort of backyard area, and it just stayed in a box. And then I came across the box, and I was like, Anessa, do you want to help me hang Adelaide's wind chime? You know, we can think about her anytime it rings. And we hung it, and I didn't think anything of it until we were coming home from preschool one day last spring, last fall, and the wind chime was ringing, and I just sort of smiled to myself, right? I didn't really, I was like, that's sweet. And Anessa walks past me, and she opens up our front door, and she turns around and she looks at me and she goes, Mommy, aren't you going to say hello to Adelaide? She's talking to us. And she turns and she looks at the wind chime. She's like, hi, Adelaide. And she turns in and walks as if that was just the most normal thing
Kelly,
to ever do.
Did you hear the wind chimes in the end of my song?
I did.
Wow, there were wind chimes at the end of your song.
That
That's
was my
amazing.
sister speaking to her two little girls. I
Oh,
used the
my
symbolism
word.
of the wind chime, your voice on the wind.
I love this.
So my two girls never met each other, but they still
have a
talk
connection.
to each
Yeah.
other.
Right.
And like Ann said in her song, they're all around us.
Always.
Always.
I love this.
And if we're open to hearing it or seeing it, sometimes it just smacks you, and you go, "Okay, Phil, you're with me today."
I
Right?
love this.
You know, where
It's a shift
for
in
me,
your
it's the
perception.
butterflies I shared
It
with
is.
you.
It
and
took me a
music.
while.
Yeah.
It took me a while to feel
accept it.
her.
Yeah.
And people would send me, so she was our Ladybug, the ladybug tattoo
Yes,
necklace.
ladybugs are very symbolic of adoption.
And really?
Yes.
And
Wow.
people would send me pictures of ladybugs that they saw, and we're like, Adelaide was with us today.
Wow.
And I never saw ladybugs. And I
Yeah.
was so pissed.
That's so funny.
And I felt like, I was like, Adelaide, why don't you ever come and visit me? And I truly think it was just because I wasn't
Ready.
open to it. I wasn't ready.
She
I
knew you
wasn't
weren't
there.
ready. She's with you, but she you're right, she knew. May of this year, May 20, 2024, our daughter graduated college. The same daughter who June
Lost her
13th
dad.
lost him, and 6 weeks later had to go to college. And when she walked across the stage and she shook the president's hand, of course, butterflies came. One came on the stage.
Wow.
A cardinal came and flew by. I lost it, not from the sadness, but from the relief of, stop. This is a huge check that I could say we did this. And then seconds later, the butterflies come to let us know
Right.
to let us know he's there.
Exactly.
So they show up when we need them,
Absolutely.
when we need that spirit and that energy.
Yep.
And they also want us to know we're always there in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, as you've all said. Okay, so on that note, we have to wrap up, and it's a beautiful note to wrap up on. So I just want to thank all of you, and we always end the show by saying, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
Namaste.
Thank you.
We are going to close the show with Anne singing a powerful song.
A voice on the phone, a face in the crowd can catch me by surprise. And I found myself suddenly drowning in the memory of your brown eyes. If I'm alone, I take a deep breath and give in to the tears. It feels like the same day I lost you after all these years. Like some kind of addict, I go through your pictures till I find the one. That one where your body's so smooth and so tan that I can feel the sun. I look at the time and hours gone by, but I don't try to move. It feels like the same day I lost you, and it just goes to prove, it just goes to prove that it's still dangerous to wonder where you are. It's still dangerous to even wish upon a star. I guess time will tell me when it's safe to speak your name, but it's still dangerous to think I'll ever be the same without you. Life keeps moving on, I get pulled along, and there are some good days. If I can't eat or sleep, I make up for it in other ways. Your house has been emptied, everything's sold, but memories remain. They ache for the one that is missing, just like a phantom pain, just like a phantom pain. And it's still dangerous to think about your touch. It's still dangerous when I miss you so much. I guess time will tell me when it's safe to speak your name, but it's still dangerous to think I'll ever be the same